Hi, Joseph. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Good. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm excited to have join us today Joseph Michael. He is amazing. He's got 3 blogs, josephmichael.net. He's got efficientlifeskills.com and betterblogImages.com. And go ahead and check out, he's got a YouTube video too, which has had almost 1.5 million hits, how to teach a 6-year-old to tie shoes in 5 minutes. So it's just really amazing. And I've learned so much, especially with the Scrivener program that he has. And so anyway, thanks so much, Joseph, for agreeing to be on this podcast. And I think people are just going to really learn so much from you.
Well, great. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm exciid.
You know, I just have a few questions. I think people that are, especially bloggers, writers, that sort of thing, people that are creating something from nothing. I think you just have so much to share just from your journey. I've been inspired as I heard your story on, I actually heard it on the podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire. And, so, as you started with 1 blog and then 2, and then most recently your great success with Learn Scrivener Fast, would you share a bit of your story?
Sure, absolutely. It's kind of a funny story, and it's always kind of one of windy roads and forks in the road. And I always did have this entrepreneurial spirit from an early age. I would say I grew up in a really highly motivational household. My parents were always entrepreneurial. My dad was always starting businesses and trying things, and I just thought that was kind of normal. So growing up, I just had this ambition to think outside the box, to look for opportunities where others might normally miss them. And I kind of liked being different, in control of my own time. I don't really like to say I'm unemployable, but I do prefer to, if I want to make a difference, then I want it to be directly related to how hard I'm going to work at it, or something like that. So early on, I experimented with little things. Even as a teenager, I had my own little snow cone business.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. My wife now, who was, then my girlfriend, were, high school sweethearts. We kind of joined up after working those mall jobs and busboy type stuff. We hate, our whole summers were spent just wasted away at these jobs, making nothing. And we were we saw ice cream people going around, and snow cones are huge here in the Midwest because it gets so hot and humid.
Yes.
So, we put our little lifetime savings then of $1,000 into a snow cone machine, and we thought, hey, let's drive around some neighborhoods. We'll get some kids as our fan base. And I mean, it was one of the best things we ever did. We got our summers back. We worked whenever we wanted to, and we made twice as much. So it was okay, that was just thinking outside the box, and just kind of carried that over with me into the corporate world, which I was a part of up until just about the last month. I finally got away from that, thanks to the opportunities and things I've built online. Now I'm able to work on my passion full time,
that's awesome.
Which is amazing.
Yes.
I have that same kind of feeling I did when I was a teenager and got away from the busboy restaurant job into the snow cone business. So I'm starting to have fun again with what I do. I've always kind of looked for things and looked to make a difference, and it's been an incredible journey so far.
Yeah, no, that's just, that is so interesting. And maybe there's some people listening that have a similar, is there a way I can get out of this job and just kind of work for myself? Your story is inspiring.
It started for me. I had a good corporate job, which I enjoyed. But I always just, I kept seeing layoffs happen, which happens everywhere. And, nothing's it's not like you work for the same place anymore for, years and years. And I don't like change all that often. Yeah. So, when I start to see those kind of things, everybody's scared in the workplace, and everybody's fearful, am I going to be next? And, I just hated that feeling of walking in knowing somebody else holds that control over you. So that's when I kind of started to look what can I do to supplement my income in the beginning? And it's funny because I tell people now, all I really wanted to do was make an extra $300 a month. That was my huge goal. That would have alleviated some stress for my family. We have a little extra cushion, and that's it. I would have been happy with that. So I started looking for pizza delivery jobs. My I thought this was the answer. We were like Dave Ramsey fans, and they're like, find some way to make some extra money, pay off some debt, save for a house. We had a little newborn on the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kept getting rejected by these pizza delivery places because I either didn't have delivery driver experience, which I kind of found that crazy. Like, I think I could figure that out.
Yeah.
So I started to get frustrated. Like, man, I can't even get this side job. What am I supposed to do? And it was then that led me to start looking at things online.
Yeah.
Seeing if I could take some of my technical skills or some of the information I grew up learning. I always was listening to, back then it was like tapes of, Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins and all these people. So like, I had this wealth of information I knew I could share with people, and that's how Efficient Life Skills started.
Oh, that's awesome.
I figured, I have a lot of this stuff, and I like to do things better. I like to look for out-of-the-box ways of helping people, and so that's kind of where that site started from. Because I stumbled across a guy named Pat Flynn. You've probably heard of him, the Smart Passive Income blog. And when I saw that he was making a living online from like helping people, that opened up a whole new world to me. I could not believe that. So I'd like spend every second researching everything I could about online business and social media and everything like that, and how these people were doing this. And that's when I just wanted to get in the game. I had no idea what I was doing. I just said, I got to get in the game, and I'll learn along the way. Yeah. That's where Efficient Life Skills started. I started blogging. I started, playing with things and testing headlines and seeing what works and what doesn't. And that was my big learning experience. And I did that for about a year with that site before I had any other ideas or any other pathways.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
yes.
Wow. That's interesting. That's great. Well, I mean, I totally love all three of your blogs. Efficient Life Skills, that's totally something that I need help with. But Better Blog Images is, that's something you can use all the time. And then, of course, your josephmichael.net. What I was noticing when I was on that one was you talk about how do you do stuff while you have a little infant in your arms. I love that. It's like bringing sort of what life is like now that you're working at home, and it makes it real for people, right?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people in that situation, like where, I need to do this, but I also need to take care of the kids, that sort of thing. So
that's kind of my experiment with like just bringing what I've learned with doing all of these different things, just kind of back home, bringing it to the real level. And so, I'm enjoying that part. I'm learning how to just take the things I've learned and then let's break them down and see if anybody else has, can learn from these things too. So
yes. Well, and obviously there's lots of people, right? Yes, that, have connected with what you're sharing with them. I just think that's so great. So with all these blogs, what is the story behind these interests and how you found your voice and the message kind of the message you have to offer the world? So how did you know that this is what I should blog about? Like sort of, I guess I'm just curious about that.
Sure, yeah, and it's been a journey, and it's something that I'm glad that I realized early on that what I'm starting might not be the end game. And I realize that even what I'm doing now may not be what I'm doing 5 years from now, because one door opens the door to the next and the next. Yeah. And when I started Efficient Life Skills, I did that basically just out of what I knew at the moment, what I was passionate about, and I felt like I could offer value. And that's what I usually tell people is think about what you enjoy talking about in everyday conversation and start there. And just learn and grow as time goes on. So like I said, if I would have waited until I had it all figured out, I probably would never have even started. I mean, I've spent 3 weeks probably trying to think about a domain name. And, it's silly thinking back about how much time we spend on little things that don't matter, or the logos and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of just getting out there and starting to find your voice, start writing and start seeing what connects with people. Yeah. So it's, certain things I wrote, I thought, well, for sure this is going to be a home run. Everybody's going to love this. And it got like a small amount of traffic and 0 comments, and you're like, really? And the one that you mentioned, the one video that has over 1 million views and like I can't even 500,000 Pinterest shares or something. It's just mind-boggling. Yeah, was birthed out of a real life problem that I had with teaching my daughter how to tie her shoes. Yeah. Could not believe how difficult that was. Something we take for granted. We tie our shoes every day. We don't think about it. But teaching it, oh my goodness, it's a challenge. And so I started doing some research of, how in the world are you supposed to teach your kid how to do this? Stumbled across this little technique, called the magic fingers technique. And like it worked in like 5 minutes. My daughter picked it right up. She could tie her shoes. I couldn't believe it. I said, let's put this on the blog. It was still kind of fairly new. I was experimenting with content. And I said, if there's got to be maybe a handful of parents that have struggled with this too. That I couldn't, a big handful of parents obviously struggle with that same thing. And I learned a few things about headlines along the way. I know you got to make the headline stand out. So the headline ended up being how to teach your child to tie shoes in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so it really started catching on in Pinterest. People kept sharing it. And then, Facebook took off, and it just kind of had this little viral effect. And I could not believe the amount of traffic that came to the site, and that's where I first started to see, my first dollar online with just AdSense revenue. And then I kind of started think this is possible. Like this could actually be a business. You could see how it would work, and it was all birthed out of solving a problem for people. So I spent some time reverse engineering why this thing worked so well, and it really did come down to finding those issues for people that they have a similar pain point, they have a struggle.
Yeah.
And if you have an answer in any way or something that you can teach or bring to the table, that's where it's at, because that's where people connect with. Plus, if you can be real, I was real in the beginning. Like I wrote on the post, hey, this is one of the hardest things I've ever tried to teach my daughter. Yeah. And people could relate and they could connect with that. And then it's okay, well, here's the answer I've discovered. And that's the same thing I've done with my Scrivener course is, hey, this thing took me a while to learn. This is hard. This is a learning curve.
Yeah.
But I think I've found a way to make it easier for you.
Yeah.
And that's where I tell people is get started in putting content out there and seeing what resonates with people. Yeah. Take the things that you learn in everyday life. It's amazing when you start to think in those terms. Your everyday life becomes this constant thought process of, ooh, I wonder if I could share that, or ooh, I wonder if that could help people.
Yes.
And you got to put it out there and see what happens. And then as those doors open, I would have never stumbled across the Learn Scrivener Fast program had I not been looking for pain points specifically. So ever since that post went viral with the shoe tying thing, I kind of became obsessed with finding problems. I'm looking for problems that people have.
Yes. Yeah.
And problems that I felt like I could help them with.
Yeah.
And I was using Scrivener myself to organize all my blogs and all my writing content. So I loved it. But I had the same similar, problems and pain points that people did with the learning curve.
Yeah.
And so it was only because of my awareness in looking for that I stumbled across it. And that was totally different than what I was doing with Efficient Life Skills. Yet, there's an opportunity. So you've got to be willing to pivot too.
Yeah.
In business. So
that's a good point, right? Mm-hmm. And especially if it's something, that you could help someone else with. Even though maybe that's in your mind, you're not actually focused on that, but maybe, I love that word, pivot, because I think that's so true, right? Just to be willing to listen, right, to where people are at. That's, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. That's truth there.
It's funny when Learn Scrivener Fast started taking off like it did, and I was talking with somebody and they said, you're going to be known as, Joe the Scrivener coach. That's going to be your thing. And I was like, well, I didn't envision that to be my thing. And he's like, well, too bad. It's what's working and you're helping people. So it's your thing now. And it's I kind of had to accept that, that's not such a bad thing. It's just different than what we originally think. And so you've got to be flexible.
Yeah.
For sure.
And, it's just awesome. I would just, since we're talking about that, that's just something that has helped me and so many other writers that I know. So anyway, we'll get to that. I just had a few more questions. I don't know. I know I'm someone who's really busy. I know there's a lot of people listening that are really busy with, either a full-time job and then blogging or, writing or, creating stuff on the side, right? And what would you say is the place to start for someone who is, just kind of getting started, starting to see the possibilities that this actually could be a business, but they're feeling like they're getting, sort of bogged down with all the stuff to juggle and, not quite sure how to do things efficiently. Are there sort of steps maybe that you have in mind, or I don't know, or tips?
Oh man, this is a big one, and I think for everybody. I mean, we're bombarded with so much stuff these days. It's crazy, and I struggle with this still today because there's a million different directions we can go in, and a million things we can work on at any given time. And I think the more you get into this online space, the more you start realizing how much there is, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to jump over here, and now I got to implement this new thing, and there's an SEO strategy I've got to do. And it's overwhelming to the point where I wanted to quit several times, where I just said, this is way too much. Like, how do people do this? They must have a team of people or something. And I heard something from the folks over at Internet Business Mastery. I'm not sure if you've heard of them.
No.
They have an excellent podcast, Jason and Jeremy. And one of their things, they tackled this same issue, and they call it an information diet. They said you've got to put yourself on this information diet. You've got to be strict with the information you're consuming.
Yes.
And that was like a light bulb moment for me, because I was just like, at this point I was like ready to quit. And I heard that, and I'm like, man, that's so true. It's like, take whatever it is that you're studying or need to get to the next step, and just research and look at those things. And it's hard because we always think, we're going to miss something,
Yeah.
And so, like, for instance, I was trying to learn about social media and how to use Twitter effectively and things like that. So anything that was related to anything other than that, I needed to go on a diet from that and just focus on, the strategy I was working on at that moment.
Yeah.
And that it amazingly frees up some space in your mind. And
that makes sense.
And it's a tough discipline to do, though. I still struggle with that quite a bit. The other thing you talked about there that you mentioned on is like finding the time to do things, and because that's hard in today's world too. Because there was a time when I was working full time, juggling family life, and doing the hour commute, and it's like there's a very small margin there to do anything. And I think if it's something you're passionate about, there's that quote, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's something about if you're passionate about something enough, you'll find a way, and if not, you'll find an excuse.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that's kind of true in the fact that if you're really passionate about it, you'll find those small moments where you could work on things. Otherwise, you'll find an excuse and say, I don't have time. I don't have, there's no room in this. I sacrificed my lunch breaks for a good 6 months in order to record some of the tutorials you see in the course. I would bring my laptop and a little blue Snowflake portable microphone I had at the time, and I would sit in my back seat and actually go through and record some of the tutorials on my lunch break. I could do maybe 2 or 3 sometimes, and it was making sacrifices like that I just believed in it enough that I had to find the time wherever I could fit it in. And once you start looking for those little cracks, sometimes you can find an hour here, an hour there, and they add up. They really do add up over time. But there really is no shortcut. It's just it's a marathon, and it's finding those bits of pieces and just plugging away at it, doing the one next thing, and putting yourself on the information diet to learn what you need at the moment.
Yeah, that is really helpful. And I just I had never thought of it that way, the information diet, because sometimes that's been my thing too, is I'll find all this cool stuff. Okay, but if you find like 10, neat things in a day online, it's like, at least for me, it feels like my mind's getting too much. It's like, I don't know, it's like something's going to snap because it's too much stuff.
Absolutely, I know that feeling well.
Yes, but so that's good. So that I'll for those listening, check out Internet Business Mastery too. That sounds good. I haven't heard that, but that would be interesting.
They got a lot of fantastic tips like that.
Yeah. I think you kind of talked a little bit about this, but have you had in business? So as you've kind of gone into business now, have you had a few setbacks or failures where things maybe didn't go as planned? And how did you overcome these, or learn from them? So that in the future, you'd remember and, take a different route or something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had a ton of them. Some stumped me for quite a bit when I was younger. I thought I was invincible, like, I'm just going to do this entrepreneur thing. It's going to work. It's going to be fine. I started some different businesses early on. Luckily, I didn't invest a lot of money into them, but they kind of fizzled out. They took too much time. I burnt myself out.
Yeah.
And there was a period where I thought, you know what? I guess this is just for the lucky few.
Yeah.
And I just resorted to, I guess I'm going to have to work for the man for, till I'm 65 and can retire. And I just need to suck it up and, just appreciate what I have. And so for a good 5 years, I just kind of got in that mindset. But it always bugged me. I always still had that entrepreneur spirit. I couldn't help but look for opportunities and just think about things and brainstorm. And it was due to those failures that kind of really you put yourself out there and you open yourself up for criticism, and it's hard not to take it personally when something doesn't work out. Yeah. Rather than just hey. You really hit the nail on the head when you said, what can you learn from it? Because that's the difference I think that I've learned along the way is if you can look at each new opportunity or each new thing you're thinking about trying as an experiment instead of this like life or death, what if I fail, Yeah,
that's good actually,
If you look at it like a science experiment, like, well, let's test that. Let's go ahead and step out and try this. Let's see what happens. And either way, I'm going to learn something from it that's going to help me in my next thing. So, for instance, when I started blogging and I started Efficient Life Skills, I was searching for okay, how can I monetize this? What kind of stuff can I offer people for like an email gift or something like that? And I thought I came up with this awesome ebook idea. Ebooks were really big then. Everybody was promoting put an ebook out there. I spent probably way too long designing this thing. Yeah. I wanted to make it perfect, and I thought it was just going to be great. Every graphic had to be perfect, and I wasted so much time on that thing, and nobody wanted it. I put it up there, and nobody would download it. Nobody cared about it, and I was like, "What is the deal?" This was the nicest looking ebook that nobody saw.
Okay.
And for a minute, it did. It kind of felt like, okay, they don't. For some reason, we take it personally. They don't like me. They don't like what I'm doing. This is too hard. I spent 3 months on this stupid thing, and nobody wants it. And instead of, I started to learn okay, well, why does nobody want it? Number one, it was something I thought they wanted instead of finding out what they really wanted. Yeah. And that was an experiment that taught me really early on to look what the people are asking for and build that, create that instead of what we think they need.
Yes, that's really good.
So before I ever spent 3 months on an ebook or any amount of time creating something, I first want to validate that and make sure that it's something people want. And you can do that a number of ways by writing something small and putting out on social media and just see, is that connecting with people? Is it getting shares? Is it getting likes? And testing different headlines. And if it's a hot topic, then you kind of have the go-ahead for the next step of, okay, well, let's validate it a step further. And you just kind of keep going along that way instead of hiding in a closet, creating this thing for 3 months, wasting all this time and not knowing if anybody wants it. So I had a lot of those early on to where, the crickets thing, they always say, you put something out there and you just crickets, nothing. Yeah. And especially when we're talking with time, that's a big blow when you realize I just wasted time on this. And when we don't have a lot of that, it's frustrating. So that was kind of my whole framework for when I learned to start a course that was successful, is I knew it was a need already. I already knew that people wanted it. And that's a huge, huge difference.
That is huge, yeah. So you've really learned, would you say it sounds like you've learned the art of listening?
That's a good way to put it. I like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because, that's sort of, on social media or on your blogs, whatever the comments are, so hearing the pain points, right, of people and, could you help me with this, and just kind of listening. So that's really good. I think that's maybe a skill we could all, learn, right?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, I like how you mentioned the comments there and reading the comments, because I tell a lot of my clients who are looking to, come up with ideas or how do I find what I'm going to create next? And I always tell them, read blog comments. I mean, the blog posts are great. Yeah. But the real gold is in the comments, especially when it's an article written around some sort of a how-to or a theory or a pain point of some sort already. Yeah. You can see right in the comments what people are real about and what they're struggling with. And that's where the gold's at, is look for those and see what people are actually saying and the real words they're using. And those later become, sales bullets on your sales page. So... And they feel like, oh my gosh, you're talking directly to me. And it's like, well, in a way I am, because I know the language you used. Yeah. So
Yeah. No,
it's a little tip out there.
exactly. That's really key, I think. That's great. For creative entrepreneurs that are listening today, just kind of heading in more in that direction. Okay, so someone's kind of got a blog up. They kind of know where they're going. They're kind of been listening now to what people are saying, and they're hearing, oh, okay, this is something people seem to be needing. So then the next step probably would be developing some type of product around whatever that was, for that solution. What would you say? Like, would you have any tips for creative entrepreneurs as they are finding their voice, to as they're creating products? I guess listening would be a big one. Is there any other like, how do you know? Okay, so maybe people mention, like, I don't know, because this happens. This has happened to me on my blog with comments and stuff. There's like 5 or 6 different, sort of pain points, whatever, that people mention. How do you know? Okay, so which one should I be going with? Is there a secret to that, or?
I think it really is taking the listening step to the next level, which is kind of, if you can, and if you have an audience that you can survey, that's great. I mean, if you can send out a survey and you keep it short, because none of us open an email and think, oh my gosh, I don't have time for a 15-minute survey.
Yeah.
Like 3 questions,
okay. Yeah.
What would help you the most if I solved A, B, or C? Or
okay. Yeah.
Even just asking a question now and then on social media. You see the big dogs do it all the time. They're constantly asking questions on Facebook. What are you struggling with today? Or you're starting a blog. Whatever you're finding the biggest challenge with it, or little questions like that. And the reason they're doing that is because they're always in this mindset of they're creating the next thing to help people with, and there's no better way to find it than asking your audience.
So whichever one you're getting kind of the most response with, that would be sort of the one you'd want to start with. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, when you think you have a handle on it, I would say if you have a blog, then write a blog post about it and see the kind of traction it gets. Yeah. If it doesn't get so much traction, maybe try, 2 or 3 different headlines. Change up a headline, and you can easily post a tweet with a different headline. It's amazing how certain things are really valuable, but it's just the way it's presented or the way the headline's arranged that doesn't really resonate with people. And just by changing those little tweaks. So it's a constant game of testing.
Yeah.
We're always testing. We're always trying to put things out there. But there's this book, The Lean Startup. And
okay. Yeah, I've heard of that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He talks in the book about, the author's escaping my name, but I'm sure you'll link it up or figure that out. But it's he talks about this minimal viable product. And the quicker that you can get that out the door, the better off you're going to be. And I mean, like, minimal as in the second you have something that you think somebody could exchange dollars for.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I did this with my course. It was a very rough draft. It wasn't pretty yet. It wasn't, there wasn't a lot of graphics. Yeah. And because a lot of people will tell you, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I would buy it. And then you say, oh, would you? Okay, here it is. It's $39. And then, oh, well, so it's like a lot of people will tell you what you want to hear, but the second people start exchanging dollars for what you have, so the quicker you can get some kind of a product out there, and even just a very rough draft version, charge something very small or have beta testers, then you get the feedback, and then you can start to see if it's something that's going to be worth investing more of your time in, because that's something that burns people out quicker than anything. Is they start doing something they think is great, but it's just not. Maybe the audience isn't ready for it yet. Maybe it's not as great as they thought, and you can't figure that out unless you get out there and you get real testers and users and people. So I guess active listening, I guess, would be my best answer to that question.
No, that's really good. Yeah. Okay, no, that's really actually really helpful. So just a little switch maybe.
Sure.
In questions. I just wanted to talk a little bit about your online course, which has been amazing. The Learn Scrivener Fast. And those of you listening who haven't, gotten that yet, I mean, that's just, that's really going to help you with your writing. But, I'm sure, I think you've touched on this a bit, like you talked about, sort of the inspiration behind the course, but would you share sort of the story of how that came about and, just the sort of the background of that?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So I mentioned earlier I was using the tool, Scrivener, just to organize all of my content. Most people, it was originally designed for writers writing really in-depth novels and things like that, because it has really robust features in there where you can organize and write in chunks and move things around and to a really, really high level. But I found it great just for its organizational features as far as outlining and brainstorming, and it's got this corkboard, with realistic index cards that you can move around, and especially for those who are really visual learners and stuff like me, it just is awesome. So I had every blog post, either in a folder that was listed by category or month and date, and when you're writing, 2 blogs and you're trying to write 3 posts a week and all that, it gets overwhelming and you've got files everywhere on your computer, and I don't think you're efficient if you're disorganized with all that. So Scrivener really ties it all in. Yeah. But long story short, I had been using it for that. I was a huge fan of it, and as I was just reading the people that I follow, Michael Hyatt is one of the blogs I've always followed. I love his content, and he mentioned this blog post of 5 reasons why he switched to Scrivener for all of his writing. And I was like, oh, cool, Michael Hyatt's using Scrivener too. What does he have to say about it? And so he was mentioning how he's using it for writing his blogs, which is kind of an uncommon thing then. You normally only heard it from like novelists or serious, big-time writers. And I was like, cool, he's using it for blogging too, because I kept telling people, if you're a blogger, you're writing a lot of content. Yeah. And Scrivener's awesome for that, and so I'm glad to see that's like really catching on now. I get more requests for that section of my course than anything. And so again, in the comments of that blog post, at the time I hadn't even thought of the course or anything yet, but I kept seeing people talk about the Scrivener learning curve and how they bought it and they tried it, but they gave up, and like over and over and over again, same kind of story. Yeah. And a couple people would mention, well, have you looked at this, this book's helped me or that, or, and then somewhere Michael Hyatt himself said, if there was a real legitimate course on this, I would buy that right away. And I couldn't believe that maybe there wasn't, because I remembered struggling with Scrivener too, and I was looking through YouTube and things like that, and I was like, gosh, this thing's kind of hard to learn. I can't believe there's not a real good course on it somewhere. And it was kind of like that light bulb moment of, I think I have a handle on it pretty good. And some of the tutorials that I had done on efficient life skills and things like that really were well received. And I always got comments on, people love the quality and the look of it. And I enjoyed that part of it. So, I thought, hey, I bet I could come up with something good, for Michael. And then I'd share it with him. And I was like, I could probably do something in a weekend or 2. And I was really naive back then, looking back and thinking how long things take to create. Yeah. So I started on that. I probably started that weekend. I got a domain name and just kind of started the site and kind of an outline of what I thought people would want to know from start to finish. And then I started reaching out to people and seeing if it was helpful for them. And it was getting that early feedback from people that it was. And that's where it started, was right out of the comments of the blog post where people kept talking about the pain points of Scrivener, how hard it was to learn. And then that started a whole slew of research for me. So then I started researching every blog post that I could find on anybody who wrote anything about Scrivener, going through all the comments, making notes on all the things that people mentioned, what they loved about it, what they found struggling, what they were struggling with, and started compiling a master list and started going through, and that's kind of how it was born. And that was about a year of work that went into that process. So 2 or 3 weekends is highly unlikely.
Well, so maybe sometimes it's good that we are naive at the beginning.
That's
because
true.
Maybe then we aren't going to feel so, I don't know, overwhelmed. Because maybe if we saw it to the end, as we started, maybe we'd get overwhelmed. I don't know.
That's true. If somebody told me that this is going to take you probably a year before you really are happy with this thing, yeah, that would have scared me a little bit.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I mean, and you did such a professional job. It's just amazing, your course, really. I just highly recommend it to anyone because it's just so easy to learn. And the videos are short, like they're not really long. And I appreciate that. Because, then you can go back to each specific thing,
Absolutely.
If you miss something, you can go back to the specific one that you're wanting to look at. So I've found that really helpful.
Cool. I'm glad to hear you say that part,
Yes.
because that was kind of my favorite little feature about it too, and it's really been so well received. And because there's this challenge of how do you take something really complex like Scrivener, and how do you break it down into something that feels manageable and feels not so overwhelming?
Yeah.
And I put that together with some research that's been done lately on people's attention spans and how people view even YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Where once we hit that 2-minute mark, we're kind of lost. We can't keep the attention that we used to.
Yeah.
And so I took that into the course, and I thought, well, I could either create 5, maybe 20-minute videos, or I could break them down and create 25-minute videos, and that just seems to work so much better in terms of people feeling like they're making progress. I can just jump in and watch this for 2 or 3 minutes, and it makes it feel easier and more fun to learn that way, in my opinion, at least.
Oh yes, no, totally. That's and then you can always sort of go back to where you ended and keep going. I really appreciate that. It's just really helpful.
Cool.
So would you just talk just a little bit more about the Learn Scrivener Fast program, because there is different sign up levels, and it is for writers and bloggers. Just it's for I don't know, and it's probably for just anyone really who is writing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I got to take my passion into it, like I said, how bloggers can use it.
Yeah. And
just all writers in general. It's funny, I have everything from public speakers to preachers and full-time writers and best-selling authors, all kinds of people in my course now.
Yeah.
And even attorneys, everybody's finding this so useful. But I've designed it in a way that there's a basics version to where it just talks about the basics of Scrivener and will get you up to speed quickly, from learning the interface to learning what all the buttons do and what everything is. But then I've added other sections of a Scrivener for bloggers section that's specifically how to use it for blogging type stuff, how to use it and transfer things to WordPress. And then there's kind of an efficiency type module. It's called Work Smarter. And a lot of people ask me, how do I deal with my research when I'm taking everything in Evernote or things like that? And so I kind of show people how to use Evernote, how to bring in research and do things like that with also a heavy touch on using it with different writing apps and syncing through Dropbox and things like that until Scrivener gets their own tablet version, which hopefully they will be doing soon.
Yeah.
There's some fixes and things like that in there. And then, of course, there's the ebooks, which is one of the huge draws to Scrivener that makes ebook publishing so easy. It takes all the heavy lifting, does it for you. But it's a little overwhelming at first when you see the compile screen for the first time and what does everything mean. So I walk people step by step through that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make it, if somebody just wanted to get up to speed quick with the basics, they could. And so that's kind of the basics package. And then all the way up to, I have what we call a ninja level package, which is absolutely everything I've ever created on it. And it's evolved so much over time. There's like so much content in there now. With these bonuses and different things, it's funny because I did end up finally connecting with Michael Hyatt. That was like my goal with the course, because he was the one who originally said if there was a course on this, he would buy it. So I got to work with him and create this special workflow, especially for him with Scrivener and working with an editor.
Yeah.
Because once you get to that process, they're using Microsoft Word and they're making, they're using the track changes and the comments. And then his point was that he hated that the Scrivener part was finished at that point. Like now you had to stop using Scrivener and go to Microsoft Word. Yeah. And so I ended up working with him and creating a complete workflow of how you can work with your editor, use Word and Scrivener together and in a really highly organized way. And
that's awesome.
He loved that, and he's been actually a really big proponent of the course and helped me get the word out there, and that really kind of changed everything. So I owe him a lot as far as helping me spread the word for that. So there's things like that in the course and bonuses like that, and I've even done some, we've done a webinar with Joanna Penn where we showed some behind the scenes stuff of how she uses Scrivener and all kinds of neat things in there. So it's really it's work at your own pace, and so there's a lot of information, but as you know, you can just jump in and do what you want, what you can.
Yeah.
And I kind of made it that way too because that's what I wanted. So I kind of created something that I wish I would have had.
Yeah.
And that's like this resource. And I tell people, I don't know if this makes me a good teacher or bad, but like I go back and watch some of my own videos sometimes because you could be using a particular feature in Scrivener and then you might not use that again for 6 months. And then you might forget where was that or how did I do that again? And you can just easily go back and watch that video or look at the screenshots and just, in 3 minutes your problem's solved instead of hunting all over or looking through a big book or...
Yes. Oh, it saves so much time. It's like, that's one thing I don't like is wasting time. And so if there's something that will get me to the solution in 3 minutes, I'm so happy for that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something to be said about people who are just show me what to do. I hear that phrase all the time. Just show me what to do and I'll do it. I don't want to have to figure this all out myself. And that's one of the pain points I found with writers is writers just want to write. Yeah. That's all they want to do. They don't want to mess with software. They don't want to try to figure things out. And so that was what I tried to solve for them, is to create a program that, here, you don't have to think. I'll show you what to do. Just watch my screen, click where I click, and then you're done.
Yeah. So, it's just awesome. And I appreciate you putting all that effort into the course.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of people that do that are appreciating that.
I'm glad I found some place where my perfectionism pays off.
Yes. No, it's really good. Yeah. So, we actually already talked about this, but I'm so glad that you showed stuff like the research folder. That's been so helpful for me too, and because I had no idea how to do that in Scrivener, and that sort of thing. So, so writers who are listening today, you guys just really need to get Learn Scrivener Fast program if you don't have it already. That will just take you to a whole new level in your writing. So, Joe, thanks so much for sharing your journey today. It's been amazing. I'm sure listeners would be interested to hear new projects, books, or courses that maybe are in the works right now.
Yeah, sure. So since I'm kind of back in the beginning phases of creation again, so I'm researching and studying my audience, and when you get to the point where you have an audience, they naturally start to ask you questions, which is huge, because you could take those questions and that those are little golden nuggets of potential training opportunities. So is for every Scrivener question that I get, which is a lot, I probably get at least half as many questions about how I created the course itself. The real nuts and bolts of, I have a product in mind. I think I want to package this up. How do I do it? Where do I go? Do I use WordPress? What plugins do you use? How do you make the graphics? And so I'm kind of working on a little project to help people out with that. I'm speaking at FinCon 14 this year in September, which is a financial bloggers conference, but they have a lot of helpful different sessions, and I get to talk on how to create a digital product. So I'm
awesome.
researching what the biggest pain points are for people in packaging up their product, and I'm hoping to break it down just like I did the Scrivener course and make it easy for people to bring their product to life and get their own course or product online. So that's what I have in the works now.
Oh, that's so
hopefully
awesome.
It won't take me a year to get this one out though, because I've learned a lot along the way.
Yeah. No, well, and that's true. Once you've done it once, right? Maybe it goes quicker the next time. Right. Well, that's something I'd be interested in. So.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
You can be a good beta tester then.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Joe. I mean, you have such helpful tips and ideas, just in helping, just people who are blogging, writing, just creating products of any kind online and starting a business and all of that. I mean, it's just it's a nice big package. And so I just appreciate you taking the time today. For anyone who's listening right now, you can find Joe at josephmichael.net and at efficientlifeskills.com, as well as betterblogImages.com. And do check out his Learn Scrivener Fast course. You will not be sorry that you did. So thanks so much, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a blast.